So today I want to talk about inflammation, the number one root cause of most diseases, and the number one reason why most people struggle to lose weight even when they eat well and even when they exercise the right way. So firstly, let's understand what inflammation is. Inflammation is the body's natural response to injury, to viruses, to pathogens, to bacteria. We need it. We need inflammation to kick in, to protect us, do its job, and then switch off. The problem with inflammation is when it doesn't switch off and when it becomes chronic. So let me explain exactly what inflammation is. So you fall down and you get a cut on your knee. Now the area around your knee swells up and it becomes red because your vessels dilate and rushes blood towards that area to heal it. The blood also starts clotting and it slows down so that you don't bleed to death. Now your immune system starts producing a high amount of WBCs and whatever it needs, that's white blood cells, to fight any infection or bacteria. At the same time, your cells around the injured area start multiplying and dividing to repair the injured area quickly. All of this is inflammation. So sometimes even when you get sunburnt or you get where you're exposed to too much of sun, the redness that you see is inflammation kicked in by your immune system to protect the healthy cells around the area. That's good inflammation. We need it to survive. We need it to protect us. But now the problem is when inflammation doesn't go back to its normal. So what happens is inflammation kicks in, it protects you, it does its job, and then it needs to switch off. Chronic inflammation is the number one cause of most diseases, right from heart attacks to strokes to cardiac arrests to cancer, because we all know cancer is an inflammatory disease. And when you find it difficult to lose weight, the reason could be chronic inflammation. Stress also causes chronic inflammation. When we're stressed, when there's emotional stress, your body may not multiply the number of WBCs, but it increases a certain protein marker in your blood called CRP. That is C-reactive protein. And when there is more protein because of an emotional issue that's caused chronic inflammation in your body, that can lead to further disease. Let's talk about your heart. Your heart has vessels, and these vessels and arteries, when clogged with plaque or cholesterol, causes cardiac arrest. But inflammation is the number one cause because you have endothelial cells that line your vessels in the heart. And this, when inflamed, what inflames it? Sugar, salt, improper lifestyle, too much of overeating. All of that causes inflammation and irritation in these endothelial cells. That produces inflammation. Inflammation sends out signals to your immune system. Your immune system overreacts when the inflammation is chronic, and we have heart disease. IBS, which is irritable bowel syndrome, colitis, indigestion, flatulence, bloating, Crohn's disease, is nothing but chronic inflammation. Let me explain. Most of the digestion of food finally happens in your small intestine. Your small intestine then breaks down all this food into nutrients, which moves between the intestinal wall into your blood. And that's how nutrients move from the food that we digest into your blood. But in most cases, undigested food sometimes moves between this intestinal wall into your blood. And when undigested food moves into your blood, your immune system kicks into overdrive because that undigested food is a foreign particle in your blood, and your immune system flares up trying to attack it because it's a foreign body. And when this constantly happens because of the kind of food that we eat, the way we eat, when we eat too fast, when we don't have enough of digestive enzymes to break down the food molecules into smaller molecules that can be digested, assimilated, and moved into your blood, we have IBS, we have constipation, we have bloating, we have stomach cancers. So IBS is mainly stress-related and improper digestion of food. It is one of the most easily curable diseases because it's all related to lifestyle and the way we break down food. So sometimes these intestinal walls are broken because you have larger, think of it as a fish net. You have small holes to allow nutrients to pass through, but because undigested food tries to pass through as well, these little holes become larger and larger, allowing more undigested food to seep into your blood, which means you have chronic inflammation at all times, and chronic inflammation causes disease. Let's talk about your weight, for example. People still chase fad diets and fad exercise programs, never understanding that inflammation could be the reason why you don't lose weight. When you have inflammation because of the junk food that you eat, too much of sugar, too much of salt, you now have insulin resistance, which means your cells stop responding to insulin, which means you have higher blood sugar levels, which means you have higher levels of storage of fat. Think of a fat cell as something that contains a little bit of fat. Now, when we eat too much of food, these fat cells start expanding and expanding to hold the excess fat that we consume. And every expanded fat cell triggers off the immune system, which means triggers off inflammation. So think of these hundreds of fat cells which are expanding and triggering off inflammation in the human body. When you have chronic inflammation, your metabolic rate decreases. When you have chronic inflammation, you have hunger cravings, which means you upset the biological, chemical, and physiological working of your cells. You have a hormonal imbalance. And that is what prevents you from losing weight, even though you may start eating right and you may start exercising. So the idea is reduce inflammation and you have better health. Reduce inflammation, you have a stronger immunity that's not working in overdrive. Immunity is great for us, but an immunity that's constantly working in overdrive can actually be fatal and can actually produce innumerable amounts of diseases and ailments. Let's talk about inflammation and arthritis. Most people today have arthritis of the knees. Again, it's inflammation. There is pain. Your body responds to pain by putting on the inflammation switch, but because of our bad lifestyle habits, because of excess salt and sugar and inactivity, the inflammation switch does not go off, and that makes your arthritis worse and worse and worse. So we have to understand that we need to target inflammation and stop targeting just the symptoms. Yep, you can go to doctors, get treatments for the symptoms, but you need to get to the root cause to handle most of these problems. And the number one cause is inflammation. So how do we reduce inflammation? Number one, we change the way we eat. It's not just what we put in our mouth, it's how we chew it, how we assimilate it in our digestive system, how it gets digested. So we use saliva from chewing that generates enzymes that helps you digest your food better. We eat the right kinds of foods. We reduce the amount of junk and processed, which causes nothing but inflammation in the arteries of your heart, in your body, in your joints, everywhere. Cancer, for example, most stomach cancers and most colon cancers are caused because of the kind of food that we eat and the way we eat. It's not just smoking, it's not just obesity today. Let me share some statistics with you. Most colon cancer patients and stomach cancer patients have never smoked in their lives. Very few of them. Which means that the kind of food that they've been eating is the number one cause of their cancer, along with lifestyle. So I can tell you, no matter how much outside food you eat, whether it's a 5-star hotel, whether it's a good restaurant, you have no control over the ingredients they use, the oils they use, the salt they use, and the way of preparation. You're better off with home food, and that should be a goal for every one of us. We eat more home food more often, and we reduce the frequency of outside food that we put into our system. Then we control inflammation. By moving to a plant-based diet for 2 weeks, you will reduce inflammation in your arteries and in your body. Remove dairy for 2 weeks and you will see that your inflammation levels come down consistently. The Great Indian Diet has enough of natural foods which are anti-inflammatory in nature, ranging from your onions, to your turmeric, to your cinnamon, to your garlic, to your tomatoes, which are cooked. All your fruits are anti-inflammatory in nature. All your raw vegetables are anti-inflammatory in nature. You need to remember that cooked food also creates inflammation in the body. Cooked food, when enters your intestine, produces more WBCs because your WBCs actually raise to actually handle the toxins from cooked food. Because cooked food is devoid of raw enzymes. You find raw enzymes that actually help you to digest and assimilate food better in raw fruits, vegetables, papaya, pineapple, ginger, garlic, onion, all of that stuff. But when you cook it, you kill all of the enzymes. Which is why I always tell you, have cooked food, but also have a proportion of raw food to get those raw enzymes in your diet every single day. So in short, to summarize, inflammation is something that you should be looking at all times. How do you check inflammation in the body? A very important marker called CRP, which most doctors never ask patients to check, and I don't know why. Because CRP tells you how much of the C-reactive protein you have in your blood system, which talks about the amount of inflammation. So if your CRP is on the higher side, you need to take that seriously, and you need to start making changes in your lifestyle, because CRP is a precursor to almost 100 different diseases. It's a very strong marker when it comes to cancer, arthritis, inflammation, and injury. So the next time you do your blood test, you may want to check your CRP level as well. So start looking at anti-inflammatory foods in your diet, and remember, over-exercising also produces chronic inflammation. If you're over-exercising, you're doing things like marathon training, CrossFit, all these intense exercises, and you've not balanced it with the right nutrition and the right amount of recovery and rest, you have chronic inflammation, and you'll see that you get injured more often, you take more time to recover from injuries, so your intense workout is useless. You're actually creating more harm to the body and more harm to your immunity. So have a great day, everyone. Until next time, eat smart, move more, sleep right, and breathe deep. Have a good day.